Hi there, my name is Alina and I'm currently a junior at UW studying HCDE, and I took HCDE 313 this quarter, which was my first exposure to research and also to HCDE, so I was pretty nervous, but I was excited to see what I could learn and some robust research methodologies that I could learn about that I hadn't learned in other classes, which was exciting. I focused on student satisfaction with the CLUE math section. CLUE is an academic support program on campus that provides one-on-one tutoring, and as a staff member there, I wanted to evaluate how well we were actually meeting students' needs and ways that we could meet their needs better. And so this was a way to leverage my love of HCDE and higher education in one project. I evaluated students' needs using these research methodologies. Field observations allowed me to understand broadly how people were behaving and what they were doing. Interviews allowed me to follow up and ask about their motivations and the rationale behind that behavior, and surveys allowed me to validate, explore, and extend and see if those findings were really representative of users. And I found that students really value empathy and one-on-one tutoring relationships, and they also see it as a bi-directional process where students learn from tutors and vice versa. And also, I found that all my findings could contribute to creating an inclusive community, and my design recommendations sought to extend that support personally and professionally to the students we serve. Starting with fieldwork, I learned that it's really important to be prepared and go in with your notebook and all of your materials ready and laid out. And I'm really glad that we had plans due in advance, because that helped me plan ahead and do this effectively. I also learned that it's important to pick one or two things to focus on and really hone in on them, because there's so much going on, you can't really focus on everything. So for that reason, I focused on interactions between tutors and students and use of the physical space, which allowed me to get some robust details that I could follow up on and extend into potential questions. I also learned that identifying themes can be quite difficult, so especially because I had never done this before. So I focused on identifying themes that seem to be present across all three of my observations and could be extended or explored further in interviews and in surveys. Moving on to interviews, this was easily my favorite part because I currently work as a journalist, so I am always engaging in this interview process, working with people, asking follow-up questions, and I really felt like I was in my wheelhouse, and it was exciting to do this in a very robust, research-focused way. My favorite part of interviews is establishing rapport. I feel like I'm very good at establishing myself as a peer and somebody that the other person can respect and feels comfortable responding to. And especially when you're asking about ways that a service can be improved, you have to establish that relationship of trust. And I feel like I was able to do that pretty effectively with people I interviewed. And I also realized that interviewing people was the most helpful when I recorded it and took notes at the same time. So that led me to identify points that I could follow up on, and then I would have that full transcription record to read over and type and have really robust results and evidence that informed other parts of my research, particularly my surveys. Surveys were the most challenging part by far. I had never implemented a survey before and I made a lot of mistakes, but I think through trial and error, I know what I would do differently next time. I would definitely spend a lot more time on that initial stage, and I would pilot the survey in advance and work with people to ensure that I'm asking relevant questions. In terms of questions, I asked a lot of things that weren't really related to my question of overall satisfaction, so I was scrambling to find some data and some questions that were really helpful and relevant. So I think I'll be more intentional about the way that I ask questions and ensure that I'm keeping my overall question in mind. I also will remember to pilot my survey with someone else and ask about how easy the survey was to take, which was really my focus, but also the meaningful nature of the data and if it could really inform some future expectations or some conventions. So I definitely like to spend more time doing this effectively so I can get some survey data that is representative. In every situation, I strive to be aware of my bias. Since I am a CLUE tutor, I'd like to think that our service is helpful in supporting students, but it might not always be doing that, so I had to focus on what students were actually voicing and saying and doing, and recognize moments where I might have been filling in the gaps myself. I also remembered to keep ethics in mind by de-identifying any information and really promising the confidentiality of my data and assuring the people who spent their time with me that I would only be using their data or their information for the sake of my research project and with the goal of improving Clue. I found that recruitment was significantly easier for interviews because I had a lot of personal relationships to leverage and people to ask, but surveys were harder, and so I think I will need to come up with more effective recruitment strategies that will really entice and encourage people to participate even if I don't have an incentive. So I could definitely do better and get bigger sample size. Through this research, I learned that I really enjoy the process of research, and although I had never done it in this robust way, it had a lot of parallels with the journalism that I already am involved in. So I'm glad that I had exposure to these three research methodologies in the context of a study center that I love so much and that I want to support students. We also identified some future research areas. I think more research can be done about the nature of the one-on-one tutoring interaction, maybe related to body language or the setup of the physical space and how conducive it is to collaboration and the use of technology in the space. So definitely some questions that can be explored further, which is really exciting. In terms of my own future, I hope that in everything I do, I can keep putting the user at the center of the system, and I hope to really use research as a tool for understanding what people need and expect, and seeking that before I really go forward in the design process or in the writing process. And I also hope to keep being curious about research that I can do in areas of my own life to improve things. Ultimately, I am so thankful that I took this class and got exposed to research in such a robust way, and I hope to keep engaging in this research whether I'm a writer or an engineer or a tutor. Thank you so much.